Hey, today we're going to talk about a subject that makes a lot of people uncomfortable, but it's a subject that needs to be talked about anyway. And that is the subject of STDs. So buckle up, get ready, because we're going to get right into it. Now, I'd first like to say that I'm 50 years old. So I have been in the dating market for roughly 35 years. That doesn't mean that I've been actively dating the entire time. I have had some long-term relationships, but that just gives you an idea of how many dates I've been on, how many people I've met. And in that entire time, I have never had somebody say to me, hey, since this is moving towards intimacy, I think we should talk about this. I've contracted something in my past, and I thought you need to know about this so that we can take proper precautions moving forward so that we both stay safe. That conversation's never happened. Nobody's ever said that to me. I've never read a dating profile that disclosed anything. I've never even had a friend come up to me and say, hey, you remember spring break a few years back? Or you remember that trip I took to Vegas a couple of months ago? Yeah, I seem to have brought something back with me, so I should probably have the doctor take a look at that. Now, we all know from our high school sex ed class that these things do exist, and they do exist with some prevalence. So I found it a little strange that nobody's ever mentioned this to me. It's as if it doesn't even exist as far as people talking about it. So I went on the CDC's website, which is the Center for Disease Control, the same organization we've heard so much about over the past couple of years. They are the authority on this. They track the statistics on this. And according to them, the prevalence of herpes simplex 1, oral herpes, amongst individuals ages 14 to 19 is 48% of the general population. Their statistic on HPV, what is HPV? It's genital warts. It's what women go to the gynecologist and get a pap smear for. The pap smear is what tests and identifies papillomavirus in the sample. And why did they do that? Well, there's certain strains of papilloma that have been associated with cancers. These are known as high-risk strains. And according to the CDC, 23% of the population has tested positive for these high-risk strains. Now, when it comes to genital herpes, that number nationwide in adults 14 to 49 is 12% of the population. One thing to understand about herpes is whether it is of the oral variety or the genital variety, it can take up residency and show its symptoms in either the mouth or the genitals. So it's possible that somebody could have oral herpes of the genitals, or they could have genital herpes presenting symptoms in their mouth. And I know what a lot of people are thinking. They're thinking, yeah, well, I practice safe sex. I always make sure that I have condoms, or I make sure my partner's using condoms. And a condom is a great resource. And yes, it does provide some level of protection, particularly when it comes to the exchange of bodily fluids. But there's a reason why it's called the old bump and grind. And there is typically some pelvic to pelvic friction that takes place during intercourse. And that friction can cause microabrasions and irritations of that area, which can make people vulnerable to either contracting or giving this to other people. Same thing with pubical grooming. Anything that can create any sort of irritation or microabrasions down there, same thing. What does the skin do? Well, the skin effectively is just a barrier. It's a barrier between yourself and the environment, whatever pathogens, diseases, bacteria, etc. that could get into the body. That is what the skin is here to protect us from. So again, when we compromise that with friction or shaving or waxing, we lower the skin's ability to protect us. So condoms are not bulletproof. Almost think of a condom as a bulletproof vest. The bulletproof vest protects your torso and your vital organs, which is very important, but it does not protect you against a headshot or a shot to one of your limbs, which of course can put you in a very bad way as well. understanding the limitations of condoms is very important. Again, it offers some protection, but it does not offer full protection against genital warts or herpes. Now, there's some people that say, well, I always inspect all the eggs in the carton before I, purchase it. Well, that's maybe gives you some peace of mind. It might have some level of efficacy, but keep in mind that some people do not show symptoms, or maybe they are in a stage of the disease where they're not showing symptoms, that it's in remission, or possibly the person isn't showing symptoms, but they are very contagious, what is known as viral shedding. And when people are not showing symptoms, sometimes that is when they are the most contagious. So it's something to think about. Now, why is nobody admitting to this? Why aren't people talking about this with their partners? Why is nobody telling their partner that they've contracted one of these conditions over their past history? Well, very simply, there is tremendous amounts of social stigma associated with STDs. It's a dirty little secret, and there's a very good reason for this, and that is before modern medicine and penicillin, these conditions could wreak absolute havoc on someone's life, if not possibly end their life. For example, I just saw a documentary on Al Capone, the famous Chicago gangster, and he contracted syphilis and he wound up dying of it. It's a very horrible way of dying, and one of the things it does is it will turn your brain into Swiss cheese. So, when you look at herpes, why is that so serious? A lot of people like to write this off as just a little cold sore. Well, if that's not disclosed to the physician who is delivering a baby, if this woman has herpes of the genitals and the baby has passed through the canal, they can be exposed to that. It can get in their eyes and it can lead to blindness. These are very serious conditions. Understand that, yes, they can be managed with medications, but they cannot be cured. And as long as somebody is carrying this virus with them, they do have the capacity to pass it along to a partner. And people do not like to lose their dating options. There's a reason why nobody talks about it in the dating world. It's because there's a lot of people that say, that's a deal breaker for me, or I don't want to go down that road. And they don't want to limit their options, and they don't want to be stigmatized. They don't want perhaps the word to get out that they have something, and next thing you know, people in the community might know they have something. It's again, there's a million reasons why somebody would conceal this from you, and there's not very many reasons why they would want to be forthcoming. And that's something that you really have to understand. So unless you are in a very serious, long-term, committed relationship that or you feel very certain there is a lot of trust and honesty and integrity, and you go to a medical facility that specializes in these sort of tests, and you get a clean bill of health, then yes, maybe at that time you can relax your standards a little bit, but never ever leave your life, your well-being, your health into the hands of other people. It's just not responsible. It is not the smart thing to do. And there's a lot of people out there that will try to tell you to take the condom off because they want you to have the maximal pleasurable experience. And you just have to really understand that it's not worth it. A lifetime of this is not worth the short-term pleasure that you may experience from taking the condom off or taking unnecessary chances. I saw a commercial the other day that really bothered me, and it was a commercial for an HIV medication. Now, this company made a claim that their medication, when taken properly, will lower somebody's viral load to the point where they will no longer test positive for HIV. Then they went further and made a claim that when on this medication, they will not be able to transmit this to their partners. And I thought that was an incredibly irresponsible claim, and I'll tell you why. Because if you ask any medical professional or doctor, what is one of the biggest problems with prescribing medication? That's patient compliance. Basically, will this patient take this medication faithfully, exactly by the rules? And if they take any other drugs or medications, even an allergy pill, or who knows? They would let their doctor know in case there's any sort of drug interactions. And the truth is, a lot of people just don't live like that. They just don't live that rigidly. They miss a dose. They take their dose at a different time. They accidentally take 2 doses instead of 1. They forget to mention to their doctor that, you know, they're taking a different medication, or they're smoking, or they just got prescribed this new medication, and will that have an effect on this? So there's a lot of reasons why, if medication is not taken exactly as it is prescribed, the efficacy of that medication starts to decline precipitously. So the less compliant somebody is, the less effective the medication is. And I don't really want to put myself in a position where I have to trust that this person is responsibly taking that medication exactly as the doctor ordered, because I don't think that's really realistic, and I'm not going to take a chance on that. Everybody has their own decisions to make. That's just my particular choice. One of my favorite TV shows growing up is The X-Files, and the slogan of that show was "Trust no one." And I do think that when it comes to this subject, unless you're in a very serious, committed relationship and you have proven that it is an honest relationship, I would always approach it with a healthy level of skepticism. And at the very least, make sure that you are taking care of yourself, and you are protecting yourself, and you are not exposing yourself to other people. And if you have unfortunately contracted one of these diseases, I think that the responsible thing to do is to let all of your partners know that you have it, and to be upfront and honest. I've heard a lot of stories about, people who are in what they think are long-term committed monogamous relationships, only to find out that their partner was not honest with them, perhaps was cheating on them, a number of things. And they contract one of these conditions, and then they go back to their partner knowing full well that they've been monogamous and faithful, and where did this come from, and how did this happen? And I've heard a number of cases where their partner is going to try to turn this around on them. "Oh, were you cheating on me? Well, how did this happen? Is there something you're not telling me? Maybe I should go to the doctor and get checked out too, because, you could have given something to me." And, then you're saying, well, I haven't been with anybody in 6 months. I mean, we've been in a long-term committed relationship. I haven't been with anybody since we met. And then they'll pull up something off the internet, some sort of a medical journal that says, well, some people are asymptomatic and they don't even know that they have the condition, or perhaps, the condition does not show itself for several months or a year. And, by the time you get into all this stuff, unless you are a virgin, you're probably going to be confused as to where this came from. And it's, in either case, it really doesn't matter at that point, because you now have it, and you're going to have to deal with that, and you're going to need to be responsible, and you're going to need to own up to that. And while I understand there are people out there that have played by the rules, and they have had very few sexual partners, and they've always tried to be careful, and they're always responsible. And guess what? All they need to do is meet one person who isn't responsible, one person that's deceptive, one person that doesn't admit that they are highly promiscuous or have engaged in sexual activities with a high-risk population, or perhaps they hang out at bars a lot and get intoxicated, make a lot of bad decisions, forget to use protection, get caught up in the moment. All they have to do is come across one person like that, and effectively they have been exposed to the countless partners that this individual has. So it's not a matter of whether somebody's a good person or a bad person, or if they've got a high body count or a low body count. Yeah, body count, the more people you're with, the higher the probability, like we discussed earlier. The older someone is, the higher the prevalence of these STDs is, simply because they are older, they have more experience, they probably have more partners, and they have probably had a lot more sex than somebody who is, for example, 18 years old or 20 years old. So it's not an assault against someone's character, but we need to be honest about this nonetheless, and we need to be respectful of ourselves as well as other people. So again, always take care of yourself, and always make sure that you are protecting yourself, and be responsible. So until next time, please like, subscribe. If you have anything to add to this conversation, or you've had experiences with this, please feel free to share that in the comments. The more we talk about this, the more people can relate to it, and we can get that information out there. So until next time, have a great day, have a great night, and I'll catch you in the next video. Thank you.